No, the Prime Minister is quietly seething here on Breakfast Radio. It's the first time he's spoken publicly since the weekend's rallies, where we saw tens of thousands of people turning out down in Melbourne. We had them in Sydney and also up in Brisbane. And you get the sense here he feels that all the hard work is really being put at risk. He's desperate to get the economy back open. But he used words like double standards. And when he's talking there about the double standards, he's specifically talking about the business owners, the cafes who can only have 20-odd people in them here in Canberra, the restaurants and the tourism businesses, especially up in North Queensland, which are desperate to reopen and are really struggling at the moment. This is what the Prime Minister had to say on the radio about 25 minutes ago.
While I think people were respectful of the issue that was being raised broadly, I think the double standard that they allowed themselves to perpetrate by turning up has offended, rightly, I think, Australians right across the country. There's no disagreement about the importance of the issue that they were talking about, but the way that was done and the suggestion that they might do it again I think, risks public support for even the issue they raise.
Now, Tom, you're about to hear from Jason Clare from the opposition. You get the sense here the opposition's walking a real tightrope. It doesn't want to say that it's opposed to the grabs, but it doesn't want to say it's opposed to the rallies, but it wants to acknowledge there is a problem. Let's have a listen to Jason Clare.
I was worried about the protests on the weekend. I'm worried about this too. I'm worried about that second wave we talked about. But, Pete, I'm also worried that the debate we're having here, where we're demonising people who do protest, runs the risk of creating a greater rift between black and white Australians.
And, Jonathan, it comes amid new reports that a second outbreak would carve another $25 billion from the Australian economy.
Yeah, it's a huge figure when you talk about it, isn't it? $25 billion. There were plans to begin reopening their economy by July, but that's now all been thrown into chaos and turmoil with what happened last weekend with all of those protesters turning out. We're talking now about our GDP figures being down around 5%, a staggering number. The risk, though, is if we have this second wave, the fear is that figure could be down 6.3%. Now, a couple of days ago, we talked about the dangers of keeping the economy closed for another week. The estimated figure there was $1 billion. We're now saying if we have to keep the economy closed because of this second wave, and bear in mind the worst of the Spanish flu came in the second wave, we might lose another $25 billion. Here's the Prime Minister again.
The rally last weekend is the only legitimate real blocker to this at the moment, because we actually don't know right now whether those rallies on the weekend may have caused outbreaks. By all means, raise your issue, but by doing this, they have put the whole track back to recovery at risk, and certainly any further action on this front would be absolutely unacceptable.
Now, the health officers are really front and centre in a lot of this debate. They don't want to be politicised, but they clearly have a message for people. Here's one of the senior health officers warning people about not attending protests this Friday night.
In your expert medical opinion, should people go to the protest?
My advice to people is there are other ways to protest, there are other ways to express your concern about racism and discrimination and violence. Please protect your health, protect the health of those you love.
And Tom, as we wrap this up, you get the sense that this issue isn't just simmering, it's really a fire front now. The protesters want to turn out on Friday night. They want to keep the attention on this issue. The politicians are desperate to keep them behind closed doors and reopen the economy. You don't quite know who's going to win just here yet, Tom.